now. All right. All right, here we are. Today we'll go through a little bit of the sugar beet period that 1920, 1960, really, yeah, about that time. Because that period has some scholarship in respect to what was already starting to become concerning for a lot of other people um, about the conditions of migrant workers. And something that, yeah, well, that's what I'll bring in here in a few moments about Ruben Donato's scholarship in respect to that period. I think he's a teacher up at UC Boulder. Then we'll definitely tie in, bring as much as best as I can, synthesize at the same time, the same period, the Japanese immigration and what is the first generation, the Japanese-born Issei, and the Japanese U.S.-born Nisei. All right, I think like second generation U.S.-born would be called Sensei, and then, gosh, fourth generation. Maybe I got it back. No, fourth generation Yensei. And these are the ones who are still, especially those Issei would be. I don't know if there's very many around. I think as because of just human condition that they're not around too much at all. But the Nisei, who would have been children at the time of World War II and they're as internees, who were children who, like from the West Coast, who moved with their families and grandparents. Yeah, there was grandparents. So maybe you had the second generation of Japanese U.S. born, or not really. I think that the grandchildren or grandparents and their parents came over also. It wasn't just their parents, but grandparents. Something that one of y'all already hit upon within the confusion. Ideology can be considered ideology, but it really was the culture was respect to their elders, and always it wasn't just like a strictly single nuclear household as most of the U.S. might be, with of course exceptions. But as far as over after World War II and just single family, that's not Japanese families and Japanese immigration. It was multi units to the grandparents. Grandparents would have lived with respective parents and their grandchildren. Anyways, going down, I think we'll get upon environmental racism. Probably I had identified in week 7, something I hoped to front load forth you guys several weeks ago with for some material as far as the history of the Salt Creek area of Pueblo, next to, I don't know if it was the steel mill itself or the stuff. There was a mill next to Salt Creek that made the slag or something for the steel mill or the coal. I keep getting mixed up. I'm not here to keep track. That's a sorry excuse for I'm not here to keep track of industry. Yeah, that's a sorry excuse on my part. And also then, of course, a little introduction on hemp analysis. But I want to go ahead and let's see. Go first and let me see where we're at. All right. I want to go ahead and go to the video. I want to front load that a little bit. It might be slightly out of order with the slides, but I'm okay with that, I think. Let's see, 1920, let's see, American, what was the name of the sugar mill company up at the northeast part of Colorado? American Crystal? No, that was American, I tell you what, Lo, I can't remember.
American Beet Sugar Company.
All right. I'll tell you what, let me go over here and look at it later as I get the slides going. All right. In as the sugar beet industry was kicking off in the area of most of Colorado, all over, the really, you guys seen this already. I don't need to dwell on that. As far as Arkansas Valley, and I had you guys, I hope, hit this link to look at Professor Marcus Hernandez's recent dissertation and the one chapter on cantaloupes. And using the concept of actual physical taste as gauging the extent of growing that crop. Does anybody have any opinion about it as far as the connection using taste as a way of gauging that and what Professor Hernandez said? Okay, did anybody watch it? No? All right, we'll go to that later. But we did talk about last week as cantaloupes is monoculture. Did anybody recall what that is? What do we mean by monoculture? And we can just segue into the Japanese immigration there and how the Japanese, like that that Japanese born generation came in and started to get to Rocky Ford. But what was the cultural influence there as far as distinguishing between the cultural influence of how they grew as compared to like bringing in or the growing cantaloupe? Can everybody hear me? Okay. All right. So we see how, I think one of you already touching upon the influence of Confucianism and how they looked at the land and what was growing on the land. Who was that? I, for life, can't remember until somebody, I should look at their paper. Aiden, is that you?
It's George Swink, I believe.
Yeah, I wrote on the Confucianism and Japanese farmers.
Yeah, go ahead and talk a little bit about that. And I think that's a good segue. And
the
thing I bring to the table is this concept of focusing all resources on one particular item to grow. So how do we reconcile that?
Can you repeat that?
So go with what you had already wrote about Japanese culture.
Okay. So Confucianism practically in the regards for agricultural, the aspect of Confucianism in the agricultural was the respect for all life, and everything was connected practically. So if you respect even the simplest seed and every single individual aspect of nature, then you yourselves will be able to have this self-enlightenment of Zen, as they called it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have your.
And then through Zen, you'd be able to be a better farmer practically.
You have your phrase that you included in there.
Pardon?
You have the phrase that you used in your midterm, the block of quote. Can you read that on?
The quote?
Yeah. You okay with that?
I could
Okay.
pull that up.
Yes, please. So what we'll do, everybody.
Do you want me to pull that up?
Yes, please.
Hello?
I want you to read it off if that's okay with you aloud. I want to hear. Yeah, and then that way we'll use that. We'll discuss how. Then we'll just see how Eastern really is Eastern tradition, and of course there is Western tradition aspect, cultural customs. So we're talking about within culture. Something I probably don't touch upon is customs. Customs. What is the customs as compared to cultural or culture or cultural social norms or something like that. So let's just go with what Aiden has as far as that phrase.
Hello?
Still there? Okay. So when they say monoculture, mono being one, so mono is, I can focus a lot on water, right? And focus of water on one particular crop, and on that crop that's not grown. What is the biggest distinction? Is that it's like sugar beets or even cantaloupe? Anything that George Swink brought in, is that something that was already being grown there?
No.
No? What else? Okay. Mantha. All right. So he brought in the idea of the cultural part, but really it's the custom. That's how the practice, the actual physical movements and their thoughts are actually executed upon as to why they grow something other than, and of course it was a lot of things like other than cantaloupe, watermelon, alfalfa, I don't know if that, yeah. So what was it that the brought in to that, and how was it different? Okay, I guess we'll wait on Aiden. He dropped out. Let's go to next, yeah. Go back to my, am I sharing my screen?
No.
Okay, I'm just blabbing away. All right. All right. All right. So what we can kind of sort of move on, and really what we'll see is the immigration of Japanese at the time for 1890. Really, I told you how immigration opened up in respect to just actual, global global events, global history, international type things in regards to what was going on with Japan itself and modernization, the opening up their immigration. Of course, then that first group of people moved to the U.S., for example, by 1890 or so. And here I have an example of a particular farm. Hirokata is still there since 1915 in the Rocky Ford area in Cantaloupe. And how, and I just saw last night as I went to the store there in the vegetables area, fruits and vegetables area, was the sign they had up there above the vegetables and a picture of the two young Hirokata gentlemen, farmers, Japanese Americans. It might have been the sons, probably third or fourth generation. But they were just sitting in their fields, crouched down, and had some cantaloupe in their arms. And of course, it just says Hirokata Farms, 1915. Of course, cantaloupe. So I'm sure they distribute cantaloupe to, I think it's the main is Kroger's Corporation, a supermarket, but it's here in Colorado, King Super. So I saw that. So looking at that, I wish I would have taken a picture of it. It's just them. It just look like farmers, what farmers wear these days with their, realize they did have some sort of farming implement company hat on. I think it was John Deere, I'm not sure. Yeah, baseball cap with a short sleeve kind of collared, a tucked in shirt that, kind of like mine has crisscross on it like that, tucked in, and wearing blue jeans and some kind of, boots, low ankle boots, and They were holding it, and it looked like the sons, they were brothers together. So really, Aiden, you back? Aiden? Okay. Wow. Oh, there you are. Anyways, as Aiden was telling you, in regards to the culture and what can we use, it's hard to tell what we can glean from a photograph that's in the supermarket. It's very, you could see that they're Japanese because of their name, and they're young. They are Asian Americans. You can already tell. That's something that I think we can kind of, to some respect, take for granted, just because we're human beings and we have eyeballs, and at least a discernment of, okay, here's a different group of people, but what can we take? So really, they are third or fourth generation, 1915, and they're there. And how is it with what Aiden said, made their look influence the way they work, and they live there as far as the cantaloupe, as opposed to perhaps falling in on the way things are organized, perhaps. All right. We saw that with particularly very similar was at the time, 1890 or so, sugar beet companies brought in almost immediately, it was German Americans, or German Russians, sorry, German Russians, German Russian immigrants to the area as sugar beets was coming in to be introduced. It was like this one particular thing. It was where both George Swink is like, okay, they fought for, they really fought on George Swink. A lot of other Colorado pioneers, per se, were looking at particular single items to grow within the area of Arkansas Valley. Why? What is the influences upon what can be grown, all right, in Arkansas Valley? We're key word here, aridity, right? What is it? What can only be grown in the soil? Okay, Aiden, you're back, I think, sort of.
Oh no.
Wow.
He put in the chat that he can't hear anything.
Okay, I haven't muted his video at all. Yeah, wow. Okay. Probably, I'm chatting him. Can you hear me? All right. Anyways, let's just go ahead and move on. Let's just get to the point to where had you all look at this particular article online at thechieftain.com. All right. And who watched this? What was the main takeaway, anybody, of this? All right. What we can do is take a 5-minute break. All right, let's take a 5-minute break. I'm going to shut down, and then I'm going to come back up and see if Aiden can come back on with his audio and video intact. All right, so it is 11:03. Let's just go with 11:10. All right, come back up on 11:10. I'll probably just go ahead and shut down real quick and come back up, and you'll slowly, gradually see me admit you guys back in. So 11:10.
Okay.